There he is.
Hey,
How are
Bugs.
you?
I'm
Happy Friday.
I'm good, thank you. I'm
It's great to have you. Happy Friday. Where are you calling in from?
from the Andes Mountains of Colombia. I'll just show you my view.
Wow, that might be the best view we've ever had on a Vegpreneur Founders Friday conversation.
That's
That's
actually our
beautiful.
prop. Yeah, there's some bulls there, rescued bulls.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, so excited to have you join us. I already warmed up the crowd for you a little bit, but I always like the guests to introduce themselves. Tell us who you are and what you do.
So, Paul Turner, long time humanitarian, 40 years actually, 41 years now, going on humanitarian and social entrepreneur. Also brand myself as the food yogi because I'm a long time vegan. And our charity is called Food Yoga International. So our whole shtick is not just feeding bellies, but using food as a medium of love to unite the world around a global dinner table. So we believe that's the solution to world hunger. So that's essentially what I'm doing. Aside from that, I'm also rescuing animals and feeding animals every day at our sanctuary in Colombia.
That's amazing. How many animals?
Over 200, a lot of large animals. We have bulls and cows and goats and pigs and sheep and horses and rabbits and some dogs and cats as well.
Do you have a favorite or an animal you have a special bond with?
Yeah, I do. This. It's sort of like the the founder of the sanctuary. His name is Balaram. He's a big Jersey bull. He's about 19 years old now, and very gentle, but very large. And he was found. He was rescued by pretty much the first animal that was rescued by Juliana. The story is that his mother, cow, we had a sanctuary at another property, and this dairy cow jumped the fence to have the calf on her property. And when she came out, she's like, "What's going on here?" The dogs are all barking at everything. The farmer jumped the fence. Says, "Oh, that's my calf. You can't have him." He says, "No, no. He was born here. He has to stay here now." So for some reason, the mother knew that this was a safe place for him. So he was born at the sanctuary. She gave him the name Balaram, which means the source of all strength. And she literally became his mother because he never got to taste the milk of his real mother, who was taken away by the farmer.
Wow, that's a really powerful story. And thank you for all you do. Let's dive into Food Yoga International a little bit more. How many meals have you served around the world, and how does that work? I know you work with partners to make that happen.
Yeah, we have affiliates in 65 countries, and they vary in size and scope. Some of them are very sophisticated kitchens working directly with the Indian government, providing plant-based meals. Most of them are vegan. They're the ones that we support. There's a few that are vegetarian, but they're all 90% of the ones that we support at Food Yoga International are vegan. And we also have projects, as I said, in 65 other countries. And some of them are small, providing maybe 50 meals a day, and some are doing 60,000 meals a day. To date, we estimate that the network has served over 8 billion meals.
Billion,
And we currently, 8 billion with a B, big B. And
billion. I said million, but billion. Yes,
we,
go on.
we currently serve about 1 million meals a day. And they're all freshly cooked, which is really beautiful. It's not frozen meals. It's not prepackaged. It's not peanut butters and crackers. It's freshly cooked rice and dals and beans and vegetables every single day.
What country would you say is serving the most food right now?
India. India is like the home of this project. It was actually founded by some monks in India in the 70s. So it has roots going back to the 70s where there were some village children fighting with dogs over scraps of food behind the temple. And the guru says, "Look, this is crazy. These children shouldn't be fighting with dogs over food. We need to make sure that all the local village people are fed, everyone's satisfied." So immediately start a food relief project. Like tomorrow, I want you to provide meals to all the village, not just the temple. So that's sort of like the roots of the program. And then it spread around the world. And I was one of the early volunteers. I was a monk at the time, and I started developing the project in Australia. And then eventually I left Australia and set up the headquarters in the United States. And I started traveling around the world, teaching people, developing projects. projects in various countries, and now it's in 65 countries.
That's amazing. That's really impressive. Can you just like give us a day in the life? What does that look like? So do you work closely with those affiliates? Do the affiliate like are you is it mostly a relationship that's around you supporting them financially? What does that look like? Are you on the ground with them? Like
Yes. So I sometimes, I mean, I'm traveling sometimes to the actual projects and I'm guiding them, but pretty much they're all self-sufficient and we operate very decentralized. So we act as a support office, training, education, fundraising, support, media marketing support, things like that. But we're decentralized, so there's no central kitchen or anything or central warehouse. Um, so on a day-to-day basis, where, as I said, it's either training and education services, marketing services, or fundraising services. So we collect on behalf of the network, and then we give grants to our affiliates who apply for grants for specific projects. So that's how it works. So the money that we get from the public, we then turn that around into grants to our affiliates around the world or
and
education programs.
I'm assuming you're working with new affiliates and dropping ones that you're not deeming fit, right?
Yeah,
It's a due
sometimes.
diligence.
Yeah, sometimes affiliates will they may uh, get off track. So we drop them and we bring them. We're always looking for new affiliates. And at the end of the day, we want to provide a way, we want to facilitate more pure plant-based food distribution. Our philosophy at Food Yoga is that food, when it's prepared with a loving intention, if it's pure food, plant-based, high energy food, that food has the power to unite the world. And if we have a sense of unity in the world, then things like hunger can't exist. Problems like hunger and poverty and that they won't exist in that consciousness. So we are more about the food philosophy. We're very good at feeding people, and we can feed more people for less money than any other organization in the world. But at the end of the day, our real focus is on food yoga, using food as a way to unite people. That is the solution to world hunger.
Why are you so effective compared to other charities?
Because I think we're very different. And as I said, like, well, there's many reasons to be plant-based, as most of your listeners will know. The environmental reasons, the moral reasons, even the cost efficiency. I mean, we can feed more people for less money with a plant-based diet. It's just great. Hygienic reasons. I mean, dairy products are prone to go off and become spoiled, and so there's always a food contamination issue. So it's pure plant-based meals, freshly cooked. So it's not. We know that it's healthy food at very high standards that we operate on, and so there's that aspect, and then the food philosophy, which makes us very unique in this space, because you'll never hear this sort of talk from the United Nations. They'll talk about they'll talk about 80 tons of grains and this and that, and we ship these raw products around the world, and that's all good, but it doesn't solve the world hunger problem, because still to this day there's just as many hungry people as there was 20, 30, or there's actually more now. And it's a result of disunity. It's not a result of a lack of food. There's plenty of food in the world.
Yeah, and a lot of it is being fed to animals.
That
So what is the number one source right now of hunger, or does it differ? Is it government corruption in some places, drought,
Yeah,
climate?
it's definitely a lot of corruption, because the resources are getting misused. Uh, Money allocated to food is not being used for that. I give you one example. I've been to 3 war zones. So back in the day when I was a monk, in 1993, there was a civil war between the Apasians and the Georgians. So most people have heard of George, but most people have never heard of Apasia. But there's a civil war there, and I was told directly by the volunteers there, the Food for Life. We used to be called Food for Life Global. The Food for Life volunteers back then, they says, you know what? The Red Cross is getting supplies, and they're trading them for weapons. That's what they told me. So I can't prove that, but that's what they told me. This is the Red Cross is getting supplies, and the Red Cross is like the distribution arm of the United Nations World Food Program. They are like the distributors. So they were getting supplies from the United Nations and then exchanging them for weapons. So that sort of stuff goes on all the time.
And how are you ensuring that your organization or affiliates are running smoothly? I mean, do you just like show up unannounced and do some investigation, or you just found the right people, or like how do you scale that?
Right. So we have obviously you have to have standards, food yoga standards. Like this is we only use plant-based ingredients. You have to follow these standards in the kitchen. We even have a very unique way of preparing our meals where none of our cooks will taste the food before we serve it to the public, which is quite unique. And that is because we believe that food is a gift, and it would be like you buying your wife or your girlfriend a box of chocolates, and before you gave it to her, you took one of them out to taste it.
Well, you have to make sure they're good, right?
Yeah, exactly. But she wouldn't be happy about that. So the
No.
idea is that the food that we're preparing is a gift. It's an offering, and we want to make sure it's as pure as possible, physically and subtly, on a psychological level as well, on a subtle level. So we have this food yoga standard, which we push heavily on the affiliates, and then aside from that, there's always room for things can go wrong, obviously. So there's always a need for like to go around and make sure that check on things. So when we give grants to our affiliates, we make sure that they fill out a very detailed application, and then there's a very detailed reporting system in place as well to make sure that they spent the money the way they were supposed to spend it.
Okay, amazing. That's impressive. That's something you should scale across other charities that are doing work in the plant-based space, because that seems like a very unique solution you've created here. Let's talk about how you started this and how did you scale it. I usually talk to founders of product companies, but you have a product too here, a million meals. I would say most companies are probably not a part of a million meals a day, so there's still some scaling involved there. How did you think through that, and how do you think about it today?
Well, when I first got involved, there was maybe a dozen projects around the world, and they were very disjointed, very disorganized. There was no like central management system in place. It was like, and back then there was no internet, too. I'm talking about the 80s. So it was like you'd write letters. I literally was writing letters to people, physical letters, and sending them around the world. I had an international newsletter I would produce on a little MacBook Plus, and copy and paste and cut out and print and send it around the world. And so that's how the information initially was spread, and the guidelines were created. And then 10 years in, I was asked to go to the United States to set up the headquarters to really formalize this charity. And that's when I wrote the training manual. And I was all self-taught. I was still a monk at the time, but I wasn't your average monk. So even while I was a monk and renouncing the world, I was reading and learning. I was teaching myself web development, photography, graphic design, copywriting, marketing. I was reading books from the library and just educating myself. So I was not your average monk in that respect. As a result of that, when I developed the what we called Food for Life Global, the headquarters in Washington D.C. in 1994. I had a set of skills which could actually help me, navigate this evolution. And then about 15 years in, so the project was slowly spreading and developing based on the fact that I was traveling and educating, and also I had this training manual. So there was clear guidelines of how to develop this project properly, and everyone was on the same page. There was consistent messaging that was also missing before I got involved. And then I developed the food philosophy behind it. So because this has roots going back to India's what's called Vedic culture of hospitality, and the ancient Indian food culture was such that when the wife cooked the dinner at nighttime, the husband, before he would sit down to eat his meal in the village, he would go outside and call, "Is anybody hungry?" 3 times. "Is anybody hungry? Please come, we'll feed you." And only after people had been fed, other people had been fed, then would he sit down and eat his meal. That was the principal part of that food culture back then. Of course, it's very different now. But so the roots of Food Yoga International come from that culture. This idea that food is a great uniter, that everyone should be respected, food should be shared, we're all in this together, we're all earthlings, we're all global citizens, the colors of the skin, the language, all of these things which so-called divide us are really illusory, because essentially we're all spiritual beings, we're energy. And these are just physical vehicles that we use to navigate this material world. So this is a foundational understanding of Food Yoga International, that we're all spiritual beings, we're all in this together, we're energetically connected, all life should be respected, and the most fundamental way to do that is to share food. That's like, you know, the basics. That's the basics when it comes to like connecting with people. Food is the basic of all cultures. So then in India, something happened around 2000, where the Indian government put out a petition for, they had a mandate. They wanted to make sure that no one went hungry, no child in the country went hungry. So they thought, let's feed all the kids at school. So they created what was called the midday meal program. And initially they thought, well, we'll just like drop off bags of rice and dal and vegetables at the school, and somehow or other food will be provided to the kids. That didn't work. So then they realized, okay, we need to have some professional cooks, some organizations to help us actually turn this raw material into actual delicious meals. So they put out a petition, and one of the charities that signed up was our affiliate in India, Food for Life India. And we became one of the principal partners of now what's called the Midday Meal Program, which serves hundreds of millions of meals every day in India. And we're one of the main partners. And the Indian government provides the raw ingredients, but we provide the actual expertise in cooking and distribution and so on.
You should introduce this in the US.
Yeah, there's been talk about that. It's not as easy, but there's been talk about actually emulating that in the United States, but it's a little different culturally wise. It's not unusual for kids in India to be served rice and dal and beans, and like a traditional plant-based meal. But if you tried to do that in US schools, it may not fly, because
Oh, absolutely.
they're
We got the
expecting
dairy
macaroni.
checkoff program. Yep.
Yeah, they're expecting macaroni and cheese, and they're just not. It's just different.
Yep. Wh- And speaking on that, I'm curious, around the world for the most part, animal products are seen as like more luxurious and do you get criticism from any donors or even people being fed for, it being vegan?
No, we never get any pushback, which is really interesting, because I've heard this question many times. People think, some people may not like that, but actually everyone embraces it, because we make such delicious meals. And they're hungry. You have to understand, these people are genuinely hungry, and they taste a delicious meal. They don't care what's in it. This tastes great. I feel good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So there's never any pushback. And the fact that we make delicious food is another reason. And also on top of that, that we have this food philosophy, food yoga, where we believe that food is the carrier of intention, and that the consciousness, the attitude of the cooks is one of the principal ingredients that makes that food delicious. And that's very different. You'll never hear, as I said, most food charities won't talk about that.
How do most people find out about you?
FFL.org. As I said, we used to be called Food for Life Global. Now we're Food Yoga International, highlighting the food philosophy. So FFL is the main point of contact, and of course social media. And we're doing great work. I'm just the servant of these great volunteers. I can't take credit for it. Yes, I'm one of the original volunteers, and I'm now helping to guide and direct the project, but it's these amazing people around the world that are doing all the hard work, and I'm simply their servant.
How can people support you?
Various ways they can offer to volunteer. There's all sorts of opportunities at the global office. We run our headquarters virtually, so we have staff all around the world. So we're looking, if people want to volunteer their skill set virtually, they can do that, or they can contact us if they want to go directly to a project and actually help serve the meals or cut up the vegetables, or they can donate, of course. It's the easiest way. And we take various forms of donations, crypto, donor advised funds, stocks, and of course, good old cash.
Amazing. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
FFL.org is probably the easiest way. Otherwise, contact at FFL.org, the email.
Amazing. Paul, thank you for all the incredible work you do. You're a very inspiring individual, and I hope a lot of people here check out what you're doing and get involved. Thank you for joining us on this Friday. Thanks for being a Vegpreneur member, and I look forward to checking in with you very soon.
Thank you, Noah. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. And thank you to everyone who joined. Check out Food Yoga International up here, Vegpreneur, follow us, and have a really nice, safe weekend.
Okay, you're welcome. And I'll just give you
All
another
right.
quick view of the
Yeah,
scenery.
please. Oh, absolutely. I'm soaking it in. Wow,
So
that's beautiful.
there's our garden. There's our greenhouse there. We need to repair. There's some rescued bulls.
Wow. That's a
Beautiful. This is
how
the
many
we're 10,000 feet above sea level.
wow, how many acres?
Uh, about 4 or 5 acres.
That's amazing. What's on the docket for you for the weekend? Feeding a lot 200 animals?
Yeah, every day I have to feed the big animals. I do that. We're traveling to the Veg Fest on December 3rd in Brazil. I don't know if your members know about that one.
Amazing. Yeah, if anybody's in Brazil, go to the Veg Fest. Beautiful. Thank you,
You're
Paul.
welcome.
Um, looks warmer than here in Switzerland.
Oh, it's beautiful and warm today. It's really lovely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for everyone and Paul, and we'll check in with you soon.
Take care.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too.